And John just passed me these pictures of the builder of the Alsek.
One of the builders.
One of the builders. Was this taken in Seattle then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, of course, much later. It was built in 1946.
Gosh, she must have been young then.
I did have, and I might still have a picture of it when it just came out of its building.
Oh, cool.
But it's not in that group.
Well, I'll just start then, huh?
Sure.
So tell me about any of the history you know about her. When was she built? Do you know by whom? Did she do the job she was built for? And has she been converted or done other work?
So it was built in 1946 by Grandy Boat Works in Seattle in Lake Union. And it was built specifically to tender gillnet fish, or actually probably set gillnet fish from the Alsek River near Yakutat. And it was built especially stout with the keel and the other boat parts to be able to go over a sandbar in the Alsek River. In other words, hit the sandbar and survive. So that's what it was only used for that, I think. I don't know how many years. I think 1 or 2 it was used for. And it changed owners fairly soon after that. And it went through quite a few different owners, and I don't know them all. But pretty early on, it was started to be used for seining. And I don't know when. And it was used for seining in lots of places: Puget Sound, Southeast Alaska, Falls Pass, Kodiak, and for herring seining, not just salmon seining. And the previous owner, also, I would say a Ketchikanite. He lived in Ketchikan, but he's gone fishing all the time. Larry Painter, have you heard of him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when he bought it, it had sunk with a load of herring in Bellingham Bay outside of Anacortes.
Oh, wow.
And so it was underwater when he bought it. So he resuscitated it. And that was in 1968. So before that, I don't know a lot of history. I got a picture of it before that, of it full of herring, 100,000 pounds of herring or something. And he put a lot of love and effort into this boat, so it became one of the most. And it's a nice looking boat by itself. Well, you can see some of that older pictures, but he's the one that. Well, he used it all winter for crabbing and shrimping. So he put pot guard. It's a pot guard where the nice looking wood.
Yeah.
On that side for pulling pots, and then he put one on the other side for beauty, just to match.
Yeah.
He was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Famous for it, actually. And then can't remember the year. I think it was 1980. So some of this stuff is original.
Okay.
But some of these cabinets are not original. The countertop wasn't original. This table wasn't original. It's a pretty nice table.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff like this, it's for looks.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff for looks. And then after I got it, and then in 1980, he was one of the first guys to put a fiberglass hold inside the regular hold to switch to RSW, because up before that, all the fish just went into a dry hold.
Yeah.
And didn't come out too good.
And RSW is refrigerated saltwater. Right. And so that was to keep the fish.
Right. He was one of the first guys to do that.
Yeah.
And also one of the first guys to do what's called half pursing, seining. So before his time, the purse line would go through all the way around, all the rings. You may not know this, but since then, or back in the 80s when he was part of the group that changed, they only purse about 60% of the net. so the first part of the net doesn't have any rings underneath it.
Oh, okay.
It makes it faster, and mainly it makes it easier to get off snags. With a full person, once you start snagging, it's tough to get off the snag. You have to undo the net. Take one end of the net back out, but with half person, it made it a lot easier. So that's still going on. He was one of the first guys to do that. And he put some of the other beautiful parts. He put all the stainless steel railing and mahogany wood up there. He added he also matched the anchor guard so both sides match, even though you don't use it on both sides. And the engine room did have lots of chrome in it, stuff he would shine in the middle of the night. But he was a good fisherman too, and he fished year round. And in Ketchikan, for a long time, he would bring his crab or shrimp to town and sell it right off the dock.
Okay.
For a long time. So that's one way you could get crab those days. And then he also, in 1980, I think he made some major changes. He made the steel mast into an aluminum mast, which is kind of a big deal, and stuff like that. So when I bought it, it was a beautiful boat. He had decided he wanted to fish 24/7 on the crab shrimp fishery.
Okay.
And he had discovered that big pots were much more effective with shrimp, and this boat isn't good for big pots. So he bought a steel 58-footer, much bigger boat, and he needed somebody to buy his boat. So basically, I didn't have to pay anything. I mean, I did, but right off the top, I didn't have to give him any money at all.
Yeah.
We had an agreed price. The price was reasonable and not great, but I didn't have to pay anything until I had the money.
Yeah.
Which is pretty nice.
It's very nice, yes.
So that was my fourth year of fishing. My fourth year of skippering was on this boat.
Okay.
Owning this boat. Before that, up until about the early 80s, canneries owned a lot of boats. You probably heard that.
Yeah.
So my original boat was a cannery boat, and my boat for the next year was also owned by the canneries.
Okay.
And that's about the time they started to get rid of them because it wasn't working for them to maintain all these vessels. Most of them were wood. Wood boats are expensive to maintain, especially as they age.
Right.
So it was a good time to own a boat anyway. I was going to have to buy one anyway. I couldn't just keep leasing one. So he fell in love with his wife at the time. He had 5 wives. Wife at the time, so he said he fell in lust with this steel boat, which was a fancy boat. In the end, he couldn't afford it. He had to trade down to get a cheaper boat to run, because the shrimping crabbing you don't make that much money from it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. And bigger boats, even though it wasn't wood, still there's a lot more stuff to maintain.
Yeah.
So that's some of the history. So when I got it, we've done quite a few nice things to the boat on the outside. I haven't changed much on the inside, but I don't know if you noticed there's a steel. This steel goes like this. Bulwarks right down. So now mine is actually this part is aluminum, but the lines go all the way around evenly as opposed to this little thing that goes up.
Yeah.
So and you can see it here too. It's got the little steel. I don't know if you can see.
Oh
it.
yeah. Yeah.
Goes up like that.
So that's on the stern.
Both sides.
Yeah, both sides. Yeah.
So that was nice. I've had to replace some of the fiberglass hold a couple times because fiberglass holds in wood boats aren't a good mix. It's hard to keep airflow. And it just rot happens. So.
Yeah. So is the rot in the glass or in the wood?
It's in the wood that the fiberglass is connected to or put on.
Yeah.
And then in 1994, the stern of the boat was made of there's lifts. I don't know what lifts are, but they're not planks. They're stacked upon each other at the back, and they were made of yellow cedar, and yellow cedar doesn't exactly rot, but it checks, gets more and more holes in it, and gets really heavy.
Oh.
The water stays in it. So that I think it was at the time it was $45,000, probably $100,000 now.
Oh.
Replaced the lifts with fir, and did that change I was telling you about on the bulwarks. Changed the fiberglass hold, and he had two. Is this too much sample?
No, this is perfect. Yeah.
So he had because he was shrimping and crabbing, he had two freezers in the back of his hold.
Oh.
And they were kind of like holds because they were fiberglass, but he had two separate systems to freeze his shrimp, because that was the way he decided that he was going to make the most money, and could be out longer rather than bring shrimp back to town all the time. So in pretty soon, I guess that was 1995. So I took those out. They were rotting anyway, and made two holes, and there had just been one hole for salmon. Made two holes, so it had more capacity. When I bought it, I could only hold 40,000 pounds of salmon.
Okay.
Now can hold 50.
Okay.
17 in one and 33 in the other, approximately. Depends on. It's all pink salmon that can hold 53. It's all chum salmon that can hold 47, something like that. So anyway, two holes, and then in 2008, so it came with an RSW system, which was, by the time I replaced that in 2008, it was a pretty old system. A huge box chiller. I don't know what a chiller is, but
yeah, I mean
it's the transfers heat. It was in the hold, so now I just have a tubular, like whatever the word is for a cylinder. Down there, takes up a lot less space. And in 1991, so I bought it in 86. I don't know if I said that yet. Bought it in 86, started fishing in 83, started crewing in 75.
Okay.
And 1 year I only crewed 14 days because it wasn't really crewing, it was just going along to help.
Yeah.
And then in 91, 91. So usually we live in Ketchikan, but that winter we went to Seattle, lived in one of the suburbs of Everett, and repowered the boat. So new main engine, because he had an old Alice Chalmers boat that he babied, and he actually had two other Alice Chalmers for parts because nobody was making parts for him anymore. Yeah. So I replaced the engine and the generator engine in 1991 in the winter, being down in Seattle. So that was my first big change to the boat, was changing the engines. And that engine is still here and it's still chugging along really well. Both engines are still there. They're getting a little bit long in the tooth, so the next owner is going to have to deal with that part. Mm-hmm. So probably another few years they'll have to be rebuilt anyway. And
what's in her now? What's the engine now?
It's an 855, Cummins 855.
Okay.
And 6-cylinder. What do you call it? Turbocharged. And the other one's a John Deere 4045. It's 35 kW. So, and the RSW was changed in, I think, 2008. So, and then this stove, I'm guessing, came with the boat, an Olympic wave team. And I crew and I bought another one that came out of a boat in Petersburg. We went and took it apart for the guy because he had to take it apart to get it out of his galley. So I have parts. I mean, that's why I got it, parts. But still, it's got a lot of issues. Couldn't get a carburetor replacement. So I've got some Dickinson stuff there. fin and I don't know if you call it carburetor these days, but fuel something. It allows it monitors the amount of fuel that goes in. Still works pretty well. People really like these stoves. You know, what you had on your boat.
We've always had Dickinson's, but I've always loved these Olympics. They're so pretty.
Yeah, I can't really make it super pretty now, although we can still get some 80 degrees. Because the door, I can't. This is our door now. It's supposed to have these nice hinges where they don't want to work. So this is our way to hold it up.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be that dirty. That's just poor upkeep. Teenagers never cleaned a thing.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing about them. Is I actually had one. My grandnephew came this year. He didn't know what ship shape meant, but he knew that things should be clean.
Yeah.
But even he didn't clean up the galley much unless I asked him to. So they didn't eat on their own. You know, kids are always on their Tosh too.
Yeah.
That just drives. I don't know why that drives me nuts that they don't read.
Yeah.
Well, might be reading on the smartphone, but probably not that small. So
sometimes, yeah.
Then, when I was a crew member, I was never in the galley. I was always up top. I was always interested in what was going on.
Yeah.
But these guys are all in here. You texting or watching movies, whatever. So.
Yeah. You have service most places now. Or?
Yeah, it seems like it.
Yeah.
Not every place, but most places. Yeah, if we don't anchor in a place of service, guys get a little squirrely.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. Or we're at Burnett Inlet. Have you ever been there? Yeah. It's where there's another hatchery.
Yeah, and so no, I've just gone past it. I haven't gone in. Tisha.
Is he on your list?
No, not yet.
Oh. You said you had 14 books. I think you said that.
Yeah, we started with 14, and they felt bad for me, so they they let it down to 12 this season. So I didn't expect to be doing my tourist job this year. So, and we didn't expect it to be as in depth. Like, didn't expect me to do the interviews and all that.
Who decided that?
I decided to be the interviewer because of the complication of having somebody else here. It's simpler for me to just interview and photograph at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really turned into the interviewing being my favorite part. You know, I love taking pictures, but I really enjoy this part as well. So I should always remember to ask, in the simplest terms, to someone who's never been fishing before, what is seining?
Am I the only seiner who's been used so far?
No.
Okay. It's using a 1/4 mile long net, usually 60 to 90 feet deep, surrounding or waiting for the fish to accumulate in the net. You leave it open for a certain amount of time, 20 minutes. Fish go into the net, you close around them, and then purse, in other words, a line under at the bottom. The net's got a cork line to keep it up and a lead line to keep it down, and the bottom of the lead line is rings, and you run a line through that, and after you've closed around the fish, then you purse the rings closed so the bottom of the net's closed. And at the same time, you're bringing the net on board till all the fish are in one little small, the very end of the net, and then you bring those aboard various ways. And
how does the skiff work in that?
Well, the skiff takes one end of the net necessary to the Canadians and their inside fishery that's not legal. They can't have a power skiff. It's just a matter of efficiency, trying to regulate how efficient the boats are, so they're not too efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the same thing. We have the 58-foot limit, and we don't allow from drum seining. but it's a way to regulate, kind of arbitrarily. But so in the inside waters in Canada, they can't use a power skiff, so they row a line that's connected to the net to the shore, tie it off on a rock or a tree. That's how they hold one end of the net, and the seiner takes the other end of the net until it's stretched out.
Okay.
But here, the power skiff takes one end of the net.
Yeah.
And you can fish out in the middle. You don't have to fish someplace you can tie up one end. I don't know if they may just use a buoy in certain situations in inside waters. I've never seen that though. So it just takes one end of the net. You need power on both ends to control the net. And the net needs controlling because it's the currents can you can go half a mile down the beach or half a mile from where you started, just fish from the currents. Even if you have a power skiff, if you don't have a power skiff, you have no control of that, and might be tough to get back. So, and then also the power skiff, after you've closed up around the fish, power skiff is used to keep the boat from getting entangled in the gear in the same net.
Yeah. So
it's kept just to keep it away. That's the basic principle.
Yeah.
So those are the two reasons you have one.
Okay.
Did you understand before? Did you understand any better today?
No,
you watched it in person.
Yeah,
so you have some
I
idea.
got to see it. Yeah, it's funny because as an interviewer, like there's a lot that I know, and especially when I know the captain, they know that I know some stuff, and so then it's trying to remember that it's not just for me, that it's for another audience. But by doing that, I'm learning things that I thought I knew, or
You're probably paying a little more attention.
Yeah, so it's good to for me too to have everything simplified, because I think I know more than I do.
Another thing about this boat, when I bought it, he didn't have any winches.
Oh.
So all the fish were brought aboard. Well, right before, how did we get fish aboard with his boat? Well, used to be people would braille fish aboard. If they had a decent amount of fish, they'd take a brailer, maybe a 3-foot diameter circle of aluminum with a net on it. You can unpurse it. So you dip that into your fish, bring it aboard the hold, and then release it. So that just was changing when I started fishing. And at that time, people had different ways. Not very efficient, but they were working on more efficient ways. Now it's quite efficient of getting the fish aboard. But anyway, he was using a triple block.
Okay.
Instead of a hydraulic winch to get stuff aboard. Using this winch, the deck winch, as the capstan on it.
Okay.
To run the lines that go to the blocks. That's how he would get his mechanical advantage. But
okay.
Pretty. Not very fast.
Yeah.
And more complicated. So now we just put a winch line on and pull that up. So I changed that right away. Well, not right away. My second year, not my first year. Because he only offered me the boat sometime in June. So I had very little time. I was on a cannery boat and they switched over. So that was my first big change. Important change too.
Yeah.
But I'm still using the old winch, which is pretty ugly now. The main winch here, the deck winch.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's the main things. We've done a lot of, we've taken care of the boat, which is really on the outside of the boat. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
We spend 3 or 4 weeks painting the boat, just mostly in preparation.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been able to, Larry was known for how beautiful he kept his boat, and I think we kept it as well on the outside.
Yeah.
And the inside the engine room is kind of a mess. Haven't spent a lot of energy on the inside of this, but it doesn't need a lot because it doesn't get weather. But we could slowly, cracks and stuff like that. We painted this side, so I've had a couple stove fires. So that used to be a painted insulation, which is probably probably bad for you, but now it's stainless steel.
Yeah.
That kind of little things we've changed.
Yeah. So, I mean, and you answered the next question, which would be how you became a captain and owner.
I didn't really.
Yeah. Okay. Well, tell me more.
So I came up to Alaska in 1975, and because it was in the news a lot because of the pipeline,
Mm-hmm.
and I was not going anywhere at home. I was coaching rugby and working at Sears, doing I don't know what you call it, parts picking job, so it wasn't too complicated. But I kind of was enjoying life because I really enjoyed coaching rugby and playing. I played at coach rugby. Santa Cruz, California, beautiful place.
Okay.
You've been there?
Santa Cruz?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then I had a girlfriend who was just finishing nursing school, so she was ready to find a job. So we came up here, and she found a job right away, both in Petersburg and Ketchikan. She chose Ketchikan, so started in Ketchikan. And then almost immediately I got a job seining on a old wood seiner, small old wood seiner run by Henry Jones, a native Alaskan. I'm not the only skipper. I know 3 others that came off his boat because he really enjoyed it, and it was laid back and not a yeller, and that made it like if you're on like this year I had one 16-year-old that one of my other guys, 60-year, I don't know if this is, I won't say his name, 60-year-old guy, he was constantly complaining or yelling at him. And to me, that's not a way to get somebody interested. That's the way to turn you off. But,
yeah.
So anyway, the skipper was pleasant to work for. He wasn't a very good fisherman, at least at the time. It might have been earlier. He's a troller also.
Okay.
I think his heart wasn't insane, but needed to do more than just troll. So I actually bought his permit. So anyway, so I fished 3 years with him, and then the guy that owned this boat, I fished with in '79, and a guy from Gig Harbor I fished with in '78, and then the last 2 years, I didn't fish in 1980, quotes I didn't, and 81, 82 I fished with a friend who had fished with Henry Jones also, who was just starting out on a small wood boat, who's now both his kids seine in Falls Pass, and he's got a big fancy seiner. They have big fancy seiners. I just got this wood boat, 50,000-pound wood boat. So, and I didn't think about skippering. I didn't think I had the skills until I went fishing first in 1980 I went out on this boat for one opening, helped them get started because there's an all-green crew, and then in 1983 or 81, 82 I was with my friend, and I was very helpful to him. So I realized at that time, maybe I do have the skills, because I was telling him what to do as much as he was doing it. So then I approached the cannery to get a boat.
Yeah.
And so my 83 was my first year, and luckily I didn't have any, and we were pretty successful right away, and that helps. Helps. You want to keep doing it. It helps monetarily, and I was able to move up to a better boat the second year because I had done well the first year.
Oh, nice.
But to get started, I borrowed $5,000 from my parents. I borrowed $5,000 from a friend who was a crew member, and that was, I don't think I had much of my own money. So I was able to get in with very little capital investment. Yeah. The skipper and Luann, who sold me his permit, who was the native Alaskan, he allowed me to pay him off, not come up with a down payment, or maybe the down payment was small.
Yeah.
So I was able to pay him off over years. So I was quite fortunate the way I got started, even hardly any money.
Yeah.
And then this boat, like I said, I didn't didn't have enough to buy it, but I had enough. But he was trusted that I would be able to pay it
Yeah.
off. And immediately we paid it off pretty fast because the season started to get good.
Nice.
In 1989, things took off and pretty much stayed fairly good till 2016. A lot of good years. And I'm not that mechanical, so, and I have plenty of inertia built into me, so I never really thought about changing boats, even though in retrospect it would have been a much better move, especially in terms of equity on a boat. Buy a better boat that would have better equity over time, and I would have caught more fish. We didn't do it. The fishing size of this boat isn't too detrimental for. I mean, maybe in some years I could caught 100,000 more pounds, maybe 10% more, because of, at times you catch so many fish you have to go and load in the middle of the day, right?
Yeah.
So you lose fishing time. So it's not so much that the size of the boat. It's a lot more tiring to worry about load management. So like you start getting 30,000 pounds and you're already thinking, well, how am I going to deal with it if we fill up?
Right.
Got to find a tender. And for a while, now that we have track phones, and it's a lot easier to get a hold of tender. But for a while, it was really hard. You had to get on the marine operator. So anyway, there's quite a bit of worry that goes along with, when you start filling up.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not a bad thing, so you're filling up, but still adds up quite a bit of stress to it. And that, I think, makes you not as good a fisherman, just that extra stress.
You always know you have the room and the stability.
If you have a bigger boat.
Keep on fishing.
Right. Well, of course, even big boats fill up in a tremendous situation.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen too often.
Yeah.
And most boats, in a good season, even a 100,000 pound capacity boat, he has to worry about it some because he's got to deliver after 2 days because the fish don't as good a quality. So he's got to deliver the second day. So he might have the same problems the second day. You have to start worrying about when he's going to unload. So.
And now that we're talking about tenders, so what does that look like? Can you explain what a tender is and what they do?
Sure. So, of course, we don't process the fish. Got to take it to somebody who does, and so you either take the boat and the fish load to the plant and have them take the fish, or you deliver to another boat who then brings the fish, a tender, to the plant. It's basically what it is. At a tender, and most over the years, 90% of my fish have been delivered to a tender. Since Trident's had this pump, and I delivered quite a bit more to a dock. And early in the season, we're just doing Chinook fishing. I mean, that almost always goes to a dock because they don't make as much money if you have to have a tender involved in that.
Yeah.
So of course the canneries processors pay the tenderman to be a tender because it's almost always a daily amount. And they compete for contracts and stuff. So some of the guys get a long contract and they make good money with tendering. So when we go to a tender, then since about 1986, about the time I got this boat, and during that time there was a shift to these pumps. The tender would pump the fish out of your hold. Up until that time, they would put a broiler down in your hold, and you'd pitch the fish into the broiler, and then they'd bring it onto the tender. And even up until, there weren't too many RSW boats until about in the mid 80s. So those were dry fish too. So they pitched out of a dry hold into a broiler. And even when I first started, there was even tenders that were dry, didn't have refrigeration.
Wow.
So now it's pumped. They stick a pump into your hold, pump it onto a table, we call it, where the fish get sorted. So usually 2 or 3 of our crew go on to help sort the fish. And the standard practice, we haven't done it this year because they're teenagers, but they send one person, usually the cook, to keep track of the tenders numbers. Because over the years, they lose track of one and two. They screw up.
Yeah.
So you're trying to keep that from happening.
Yeah.
So, and then it takes, depending on the speed of the pump, the tenders, the efficiency, it takes, and how many fish you have. But let's say a 50,000 pound load takes between an hour and 45 minutes, depending on the tender, basically.
Yeah.
Also, depending on how many money or non-pinks you have, where there's a lot of sorting, that slows you down a little.
And of course, you sort because each fish is worth a different price. Yeah.
Occasionally, they sort it at the plant and they give everybody the same percentage. I can't remember when that's happened recently, but it does happen.
Yeah.
I think actually last year, something of the pandemic.
Oh.
They weren't sorting on. They weren't sorting on the boats.
Yeah, less crew and.
So they would. Yeah, they didn't want crew members on the tenders, so they would just take all the fish and then sort them at the plant.
Okay.
But I wasn't too involved because last year I was trying to do the cost recovery too.
Right. Yeah.
So I didn't get to see that.
So the next question is, what makes her unique? Is there something you'd like me to photograph in particular?
Makes what unique?
Her.
This
the
boat?
Alsek, yeah.
Oh. Well, you would know as well as me.
I know, I have a big crush on this boat.
I'm pretty sure it's the. It's got pretty good lines. It doesn't have a wheelhouse, and it's hard to put a wheelhouse on a boat that wasn't meant for it. Yeah. Which most wood boats didn't start. Almost all didn't start with the shoes. I shouldn't say wheelhouse. Top house.
Yeah.
And in most wood boats, seining anyway, have been top houses have been put on.
Yeah.
Like this boat next to us.
Yeah. T-shirt.
And this looks pretty good. Some of them look pretty good, but they definitely changed the lines.
Yeah.
So this boat doesn't have that change. And I think that's one thing people notice. And then it's well maintained, so it usually looks, even though right now there's rust spots and stuff, but those can come off really easy. And then I think it's the wood work, these pot guards.
Yeah.
Maybe the anchor guards too in combination. And I think those are the main things that draw your eye.
Yeah.
So, picture of? I don't know.
Yeah.
Picture of the pot guard? Just have to take it from a
I'll
distance.
take pictures of everything, but.
Of course, we have lots. These are mostly pictures of work on the boat. So that I was thinking there's one I saw, but of course at home we have all kinds of pictures of boat pictures.
Yeah.
Where it also looks nice. Let's see.
So in
Right. So this is the year we made that change to the stern, and it was taken in Port Townsend, which is where we did it. So I don't know if you want any of my pictures or not.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll take a few on my phone, so it's a quick digital copy, and then we can add that to the collection. Because none of these are going to be, you haven't had these digitized, right?
No. Well, I have a former crew member who he was with me for 25 years. He's still fishing, but he took quite a few pictures, and he sent them. I think he's had them all digitized, at least some of them.
Okay.
Which he has sent to me.
Well, I'll give you.
And then our pictures lately have been digital, so.
Yeah.
So we have some, but I don't know
Yeah,
how
I think
much you want to see.
the museum is happy to see to have anything that's surrounding the boat's history
Okay.
too. So
Well, I won't have a whole lot of time to think about this
Yeah.
for a while. How fast are you trying to?
no, we're not in any hurry with that part.
So this is a picture. So you can see there's no flying bridge.
Oh yeah.
So we took the old one, which was made of plywood. It's
Mhm.
another thing I didn't mention.
Yeah.
That one of the other changes we made is, and I have a picture of that being built. Then we put an aluminum flying bridge. So that's
It's so
aluminum.
funny how different it looks with that one.
In Alsek, pictures of it get taken all the time. So I think if you went online, you find all kinds of pictures. Oh yeah, another thing I did. So we replaced only the year Trump was elected. We were in the shipyard in Seattle, replacing almost all the ribs on the starboard side.
Oh wow.
So with UHF, it's black plastic.
Okay.
Have
Yeah.
you seen it?
Yeah. Charlie uses it sometimes.
Yeah.
UHW.
I think so.
Yeah.
Which you can drill holes in, and the holes stay. So that was kind of a big expense and change. And the port side, I'm sure, we took a plank off to look at the ribs, and there was signs of issues, but not at the point where they were gone.
Yeah.
Some of these were. This boat, as far as I know, since Larry got it, 1968 is when he got it, hasn't been, well, I know since I've had it, and I assume he didn't do anything because he probably did it all when he first got it.
Mm-hmm.
But it hasn't been recorked, hasn't been refastened. I don't know if you know, they don't last forever.
Right.
That stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not that worried about it but if I was going to buy this boat, I would think that's in the future because they don't last nearly as long as this has lasted.
Yeah.
It's been kept care of, and we've checked places every year to see if the fastenings are, pretty soon they get into little pinpoints.
Yeah.
And the corking just starts falling apart.
Yeah.
That's what happens. And I'm sure some of that's going on in the boat, but so far we haven't found any obvious issue. But it's an issue for wood boats. Yeah. Like the Wonderland, I don't know if you've seen that boat around. Yeah. He just redid all refastened, recorked the whole boat. And I've thought about it, but it's a big project.
Not on the list of priorities yet.
Well, it should be because it could be unsafe if the plank falls apart. He said he had planks that weren't held in by anything except for, they've been there. Yeah. The plank head is on inertia. Right. But they said it popped off on its own when they were working on it. So. Oh, man. And boats have sank in my time, and people have died because the plank froze. Yeah. A long time ago, I haven't heard of anything recent like that.
So, a lot of this, you're doing so great answering these questions on their own, but, has anyone, and I suppose that's going to be Larry in this question, anyone shared stories with you about her past? You said that she had sunk at one point. Well,
I haven't really listened that hard, but I've had more than one person who worked on this boat being built, not just that guy. Oh yeah. Or more likely a son of someone who worked in this boat who would stop by, and we share that, and I'm usually so busy, and that's at the boatyard because they see the boat, they come, and I'm usually not focused on what they're saying. Yeah. So I'm not sure I learned a lot. That guy knew a lot, so he's the one who told me what it did, and why they built it the way they built it, extra sturdy on the bottom there. And then several people who currently fish, or their sons who currently fish. I don't know if anybody currently fishes, but sons of people that own this boat are talked to.
Okay.
But again, I'm not sure I've listened.
Yeah.
Or I'm not sure I listened in a way asking questions type listening. I was
Yeah.
just there, but
Yeah.
I wasn't into getting a lot of information
Yeah.
out of them. Maybe I would now since I'm retired. But,
Yeah.
and I enjoy this boat, but I'm not in love with it. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm with my wife. She asked me this morning if I would film a trade the Alsek River because I've been down this last year because I think I'm about to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
I've spent way more time than usual.
Yeah.
All last fall, a lot of last spring, now, and I didn't have any experienced crew members this year, so that makes a huge difference in how much time it takes. I'm the fix-it guy.
Right. Yeah.
And usually somebody else is fixing it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm sure I finished. That's why, because I was didn't feel that mechanical, I was reluctant to go to a different boat. This boat I know,
right,
all the parts of it, So that was an excuse.
Yeah. Well, that's why I've been shooting my same camera for 12 years now.
Oh, what? It's still digital, isn't it?
It is, yeah, but it's time. But I know how she works. So then, and of course you touched on this as well, but how has the fishing industry changed in your lifetime?
Let's see. Well, I probably have mentioned most of the things. Yeah. Fishing industry itself, quality of keeping care of the fish is way better than it used to be. I think that even true with trawlers, but especially the net fisheries. Yeah. So that's mostly in the form of, people used to take pews, little pews, and stick them into their fish. They wouldn't always hit the head to put the fish in the holes, that kind of stuff. Dry fish that were not refrigerated right away. I'm not sure how trolling's changed. There's a lot more frozen at sea boats, but there's still lots that aren't. I don't know if trollers have got better at keeping care of their boat, whether they've always been bleeding
fish. It used to be
like
something like 10 days or something that they could keep them iced, and now 4 days is the max.
Well, that's a big change.
Yeah.
So this is the same time when we put a new flying bridge on.
Oh yeah. And not everybody does that wood cap along the.
Right. So we replaced. That was the Larry Painter touch. All that old mahogany got replaced with new mahogany.
Oh, okay.
So crazy.
Yeah.
And then last 2 years ago, we really had to do a number to get the mahogany back.
Oh.
Because we hadn't kept up with the work it takes. You can imagine, on a wood boat, how much time it takes.
Yeah.
So we actually spent a lot of, took heat guns and took all the old stuff off. But this was a good change because we had the rot and the wetness of the wood was going down into the and we put, I can't remember, I think he had, I can't remember. So we fiberglassed the top, and I can't remember if he had a fiberglass or not. And I replaced these boxes a couple times. Those are really hard to keep from rotting.
Yeah.
So, okay, keep going.
All right.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's great. My interviews have been.
If you stay around to 4, you can help us put the net in the hole.
I wish I got a kid to pick up eventually. So then this one's just, do you have a favorite story about the boat or fishing that you'd like to pass on? Maybe the best day or maybe the worst day, a close call.
Well, Manny had a lot of days that are in my memory. I am really good at remembering. So it's helpful because I can remember where we were, what time, state of the tide, weather. So you can read. The fish behave similarly every year. They change too, but a lot of times they do the same thing year after year. Just like the Neats Bay fish want to go to Football Beach every year. Now, why do they go there?
Yeah.
You know what Football Beach is?
Yeah.
So, but every year, that's where they go first, hang out.
Yeah.
For some reason. So fish coffin are doing the same thing every year.
Mm-hmm.
So it helps to remember. Yeah. Some people write it down. Try to write it down. The thing is, if you really go by what happened in the past, then you screw up because it doesn't always happen the same.
Right.
So you're waiting for it to happen, it doesn't happen. So I have a lot of stories, but the one that sticks in my mind, we're fishing in Chatham Straits, and it's very good fishing. The weather's getting nasty, and there's 10 minutes left in the opening, something like that. Might have been 15 or 14 at the time. And I say to my crew, so it's nasty, and we're only going to be able to make a 10-minute set, and the fishing is good, but anyway, so I got so many stories, but that's the one I can think of right now. So I looked at the crew and says, we got to do this, right? Yeah. So put the net out in the nasty weather, and we had a good set, but not a great set because it was only 10-minute tow. But just the mentality of, I don't know, you got to do it because the fish are there, right? Mm-hmm. Actually, there's even a better one. I forgot. I'll tell you the other one. So we're fishing in Cordova Bay, and it's blowing close to about 30 miles an hour. So pretty at the limits of what we want to fish in if there's any waves associated. Mm-hmm. We fish in gusts of 50 or 60, but 25 is about comfortable. Not comfortable, but it's okay. Mm-hmm. After that, it gets more dangerous, harder to do. There's a super amount of jellyfish, and so we put the net out, and then immediately it got much windier. Now I don't know how windy, but 50 maybe. Yeah. Seas started going like 8 feet instead of 3 feet. That was really scary. But what could do? We had to finish the set. There's nothing else we could do. So the jellyfish are pouring at my face from the wind. The skiffman only can do one thing. That's keep the stern to the waves, and the net is flying all over the place. So we got it back in, and immediately went anchored up. So everybody was on that boat that day, remembers that day probably more than anything. But we went and anchored up the next morning, and I haven't been that good at fishing. But the next morning we got up, and it was really good fishing. And I think the wind had blown the fish, and then they're coming back, which happens a lot. Yeah. Southeast particularly will move fish, and then they got to come back. So, combination of having really good fishing and that experience. Yeah. Hot face jellyfish. Oh man. So it's pretty good story. The ones that people who were there all know it's a good story.
Right. Yeah. Gosh, I've heard so much about the jellyfish coming off the block and hitting you when you're coiling, but I never thought of the wind flying them.
Yeah, it was so windy. Face. Yeah. Because I don't remember when the heat from that went away. It was sometime the next day, all night. So, but we were so happy to anchor up, get out of that. Scary. Yeah, that's one story.
All right. So then fishing isn't an easy lifestyle. What keeps you going? What has kept you going?
Well, I've only been fishing in the summers, so it's a pretty easy lifestyle for me. Yeah. I've done fish politics for a long time. Yeah. And I stopped a few years ago, and then I did indoor soccer. Mm-hmm. So fishing allowed me, because I was making enough money, as far as I was concerned, making enough money that I could do non-monetary things in the wintertime. Mm-hmm. So it's about $5 months of work and 7 months of not work.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't hard. It's not a hard lifestyle for me. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe for some people just because of the physical parts and
Mm-hmm.
being away from home, etc.
Yeah.
I only had one son, and I was able to be home. Well, if it wasn't for fish politics, I'd have been home a lot more. But
Mm-hmm.
I was on the Pacific Salmon Commission for 6 years. I was 40 days a year away from home.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on the Senators Association, executive director and president. I was on the Sarah board for 18 years, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So, and then soccer started to take up. It's amazing how much time that took up. Basically, I would say indoor soccer between reffing and organizing was a 3-month full-time job. Seemed like it. At least I
Yeah.
worried about it all the time. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's always issues that came up.
Yeah. Well, you're the one that got us into coaching,
Oh, yeah.
and then from that,
And playing.
yeah,
Charlie wasn't playing.
Yeah. Now he's
That was fun.
every time they can, he's playing. Yeah.
Still, Charlie's still playing?
Oh yeah. Just
So,
about every time somebody goes, "How old are you?"
well, I was playing until I was 60, and I wasn't good like Charlie. Although Charlie probably has a bit the same. Learning so late,
Yeah.
nothing comes automatic.
Yeah.
So you have to think things through. And then if you have to think, it's too late, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
He's pretty coordinated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a good time almost always got parents involved.
Yeah.
That's the way to go. As far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned. We have a much better practice.
Yeah.
Enthusiastic parents. Charlie was the most enthusiastic. That was great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been wonderful.
So the answer was, to me, it hasn't been a hard lifestyle.
Yeah.
I think and seining is relatively, I have to use this boat on the outside quite a bit,
Mm-hmm.
but not, and most of the time the weather when I've been outside isn't that bad.
Yeah.
If it's really bad, we stopped fishing. We didn't stop fishing. We just went inside someplace and fished. Never stopped fishing.
Yeah.
But so except for sometimes fishing out there, and occasionally like in Cobra Bay when the weather's really nasty, and sometimes in Clarence Straits,
Yeah.
it's pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But you anchor up at night, so you're not out in the ocean for days,
Right.
or going to Kodiak, or halibut fishing or blackcod fishing, stuck out in shitty weather.
Mm-hmm.
So, don't know, for me, it hasn't been a hard lifestyle. It's
Yeah.
been lucky. I've been lucky, super lucky
Yeah.
to do this. It's still challenging, so.
Yeah. And so you mentioned selling the boat. What's the future look like for the Alsek, or do you know? Are you?
Well, I have had a crew member who, maybe you know him because he's an artist that produces quite a stuff. He's got stuff in town.
Okay.
Tom Crestadina.
Okay, yeah.
You know him?
I know
Heard of him?
of him. I don't know him
He
personally,
does
but I know
a lot of cutaways
Yeah.
of boats.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have something right here.
Yeah, and he
I probably do.
he has a book that's pretty recent as well, doesn't he? With his.
He's working on a book.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And the reason he's not fishing this year is he had a deadline to meet.
Oh, okay.
They gave him an advance, and
Yeah.
he's missed the deadline a couple times.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen his work, but it takes him a while to produce stuff.
It's
He does his
amazing.
little
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
and he's quite good at it, I think. When I first met him, way back, I don't remember that what, in the probably early '90s, he was doing drawings, just very realistic drawings, still pretty
Yeah.
detailed.
Yeah.
No character particularly to them, just really realistic, good drawings of boats.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing that caught your eye, nothing of interest.
Yeah.
Now his stuff's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so I was hoping he would buy the book, 'cause he wants to buy the book,
Mm-hmm.
but he's also a very poor money manager. He's got 2 kids
Mm-hmm.
and can't get it together. So I've given up on it. I was gonna give him definitely first priority. In fact, I just waited for him to buy it. And
Yeah.
then I told him if somebody else made an offer, I would let him know so he
Yeah.
could do something about it. But
Yeah.
now I'm not even gonna. I'm just
Moving on.
let him know that it's for sale. But
Yeah.
So I can't. I'd like to keep the boat for fun, but it's just it's also it's a lot of work.
A lot of maintenance.
Yeah, and the boat's got those. The engine's getting old. Hasn't been corked and refastened. All this stuff that is deferred, and maybe it could be deferred for another 10 years. But and I'm much slower getting stuff done. So this is what I've been telling Tina anyway. I'll get it to a broker to sell this fall. I don't know if it'll sell.
Yeah.
Because it's a wood boat. This boat's been for sale for a year and a half or two. He started at $525, and I noticed he put in the paper for $350 now.
Yeah.
So, and then I've known a guy who's got his for sale. It's for 3 or 4 years. It hasn't sold, so I don't know. This boat's gonna have appeal to some people, but
yeah.
You see, this season will help because there'll be more people with some money.
Yeah.
And I still hope Tom buys it. Oh, he might not be the greatest maintainer of the boat, but I don't. It takes an exceptional person to. What happens to wood boats? They just they start getting old.
Yeah.
The shipwright told me this about 20 years ago, and up until that point, I didn't know that was true. He says nothing lasts forever.
Yeah.
I thought if you maintained it super well and replaced things as needed, they could last forever, but they can't.
Right.
Wood boat can't.
And that was a big part of me wanting to do this project is that
they're gonna die.
You know, we're losing them. You know,
one way or another, right?
Right. Yeah, and not about the Alsek in particular, but just it's an important thing to add to the history of the area and make sure that pieces are preserved.
So, very unique about the Alsek. See these things?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know right now if they're all lined up, but Larry Painter and one of my cooks made sure they were the slots are lined up.
Oh, yeah.
So if you want to take things special about the boat, take the slots lining up. I don't know if you can make a picture out of it. But.
Yeah. She's so cool.
A crazy guy owned it. And we've kind of done some crazy things to not to upset what he had put into it.
Yeah.
So, and the thing he never came down to look. I would have liked him to see the stuff. Well, I wouldn't have liked him to see the engine room because he had chrome and copper all shined all the time.
Wow.
I mean, it shouldn't look like that. Well,
yeah.
Anyway, now it's all tarnished.
Yeah.
Or gone. So I also put a big motor in the bilge for a backup hydraulic system because if you lose your main hydraulic system or your engine, you can't get your net back. Or other things, you can't get your anchor up.
Right.
It's pretty unsafe. So I put it. The only place in this boat is pretty tight down there.
Yeah.
I put a motor in the bilge.
Wow. Yeah.
Shaft that way.
Yeah.
And it's big. It's 15 horse. So it's harder to maintain below the engine now because you can't reach anything because there's a motor in the way. So it's kind of oily. Doesn't look too good. So I wouldn't have liked them to see the engine. So maybe I discouraged him from seeing. I can't remember. But he could see the outside was being kept up. So. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a responsibility taking on a.
Yeah, I should mention, if somebody ever reads this or listens to it, the reason it looks so nice isn't not partly. I don't know how much of it's me. I had a crew member, the guy that I had for 25 years. That what was I telling you about him?
That he
took pictures and digitized them. So he really wanted to make he's meticulous as heck, to a fault. So he wanted to keep this boat up, and I just let him do it and encouraged it. And we started to do stuff his way. First we take the boat out of the water for 3 or 4 days, and then now it's 22 days, just so you can fully get it ready to paint.
Wow.
And if it hadn't been for him, I wouldn't have done it because it was too much work. And you got to get the other crew to get into it and stuff like that. But I always had crew pretty interested, and it helped to have somebody really interested.
Yeah.
So people give, on the internet, people are talking about the Alsek a fair amount because how nice she looks, etc. And I don't ever respond or anything because they don't know what they're talking about. They usually give it all to Larry Painter, the first owner. We maintain it on the outside better than he ever did.
Yeah.
But I attempted to mention Ed.
Yeah.
Because Ed is really the reason it's so pretty, not me. Except I encouraged him.
Yeah.
So, and because of that, I might have changed boats a long time ago if I had a declining wood boat and seen, once they start to decline, then to get them back, then that's a lot, even more work. Keeping it up is one thing. Getting it back is a whole different ballgame. Yeah. So if it declined, which it probably would have if I hadn't had special people, then I probably would have got, in the long run, I'd probably been better.
Dang it.
I would have got a nice big boat. Dan Cassidy, know who that is?
Yeah.
He said, once you get a bigger boat, you're a better fisherman. That's what he told me first. Then later he told me, no, he doesn't think that anymore. He thinks it's because you got 10 more years experience why you're a better fisherman. But that's what he told me. And I repeated it in a long time. But I think there's some truth to it. A bigger boat makes you a better fisherman.
Yeah.
But now I'm at the end of my career. And according to Tina, I better be.